Hello everybody. Today's video is for parents who are helping a toddler adjust to a newborn in your family. So in our personal experience and in a lot of my professional experience, I've seen that one of the biggest adjustments is from when you go from one child to the second child and you have to start to split your time, and that can be really tricky. So a lot of us worry about the older child, the firstborn, being jealous of the baby, but it's really a little bit more than that. I was privileged to attend a lecture once from a famous behavioral expert, and this is what they likened it to. It would be as if you're the wife, if your husband brought home another woman, a younger woman, and said, since this woman was younger and newer, she was going to take more of his time, and get this, you're supposed to love her too. It's not jealousy so much as just confusion, outrage, anger, displacement. Where am I in the world? So just keep that in mind to help yourself have a little bit of extra grace for that older child. Now, the good news is it's not really as bad as that, because this is wonderful for that child, and it's going to teach them how to share and have a playmate and a very close friend for the rest of their lives. It's a wonderful thing for the older child. So don't feel that guilt. It's actually good for them. I just gave you that analogy to help you understand some of the range of emotions they may be feeling with the birth of their younger sibling. Now, these toddlers often also ask some really hard to answer questions after the newborn comes home, so we're going to address that as well. It is important when you bring the newborn home that you try to maintain as much of a normal routine schedule, the same limits, the same meal times, the same snacks, the actual same snack food, all the things that happened before the newborn was born. As best as you can, try to keep those happening for the older child. Because of that guilt you can feel from bringing in the newborn, it's really easy to cave in and feel like the toddler, the 3-year-old, should be allowed to have ice cream for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but really that's not a good idea, because what that does is tell that little heart that they're right, the world's really ending, everything's falling apart. So anything that you can do to maintain the normal routine will help the baby feel that, or the toddler feel that things aren't really that different, even though there's a new human living in their house. The other thing that can be helpful from this same behavioral lecture I enjoyed was that if you could just carve out of your day, even just 10 to 15 minutes of the mom and of the dad to spend with the toddler, so that they know every day, whether their behavior is good or bad, they'll get that guaranteed alone time with each parent. That goes a very long way in reassuring their little heart that the world's not really over. Now, you can let the child pick the activity. It shouldn't be just watching television or screen time, but you get to pick the time, because you are, whether you feel like it or not, you are really still in charge. So it's really important that you maintain that. And it's going to be hard anyway when you're managing and balancing all your time between 2 children, or if you're watching this for a 3rd or a 4th child, some of these same rules apply. So anything you can do to help the toddler feel important and help you with a newborn, that's really good. So bringing mommy or daddy the diaper, or throwing this diaper away if it's appropriate, or whatever you can do to make that toddler feel important, loved, and necessary, useful, that can help a lot. Now, one of the questions that I often get asked by parents is, how do I answer the question of my toddler about where do babies come from? And so the couple of principles I want to teach you, the most important is do not lie to your child, okay? That's very important. And the second one is only give them as much information as they're asking or able to understand, right? So I think it's helpful to begin this talk if they really want to know and they're asking. You have to keep it on their level. So first we just need to explain that there is a difference between boys and girls. And that's often what prompts a lot of these questions. If you have a little boy first and then a girl's born, they want to know what happened to her penis. Did it fall off? If it's a little girl and a boy's born, they want to know what is that thing in his diaper that is not in hers. So it's important to be just honest, don't lie. And I think, but you know, I'm a doctor, so I'm probably biased, I think it's helpful to use the actual names for things. Well, at least that's easy for boys. So when our boys were little, we called a penis a penis. I just think that's what you should do. It makes it easier if there's ever any questions later about what you're talking about. Now, but probably again, because I'm a physician, we also call testicles testicles. But if you have other names for them that you'd prefer to use, that's entirely up to your family. Now, when it comes to naming little girl parts, this is very tricky. So I have seen memes about this, or read paragraphs about people that post it, well-meaning, talking about it's important for girls to know the name of their body parts too, just like little boys, particularly later if there's ever any concern for abuse, so that they can identify the proper parts. Here's the problem with girls. The parents often teach the little girls, that the name of their girl parts, that the name of it is a vagina, right? And we all know what a vagina is, but that's not really what they're talking about, because they'll even call me and say she has a rash on her vagina. Well, the vagina is an entirely internal organ, right? So you can't really have a rash on that you could ever see or call me on the phone to describe. So you're probably talking about her labia minora, or most likely her labia majora, or some people call all of the external female genitalia vulva. Well, it's really hard to teach a 2-year-old little girl you have a rash on your vulva. So I'm going to leave this up to you guys. I've heard some doozies through the years. So some people call the external female genitalia the Lucy. I usually just refer to it as girl parts, but you can call it, oh my goodness, I have heard chicken and monkey. So one little girl one time did have a rash externally, and she said, "Dr. Wangdon, my chicken's itching." So there's some really, really funny names you can have for it. Probably not very professional though, so I'm gonna go with girl parts. But if you wanna teach the little girl it's her labia majora and the inside labia minora, that's fine. I just think that's a little bit cumbersome for toddlers. Okay, so I digress. So it's important to start this story with little boys and little girls have different parts, and that may be all they're even asking. And you stop there. There's no need to provide them information that they don't want, right? And sometimes they literally just meant, did you bring the baby home from the hospital, when they ask you where the baby's come from. And you can say yes, and you're done with that conversation, and you just wait until they get older and have more specific questions. Now, this is only the toddler version, mind you. It's extremely important that you share direct and accurate information with them when they're older, before they hear misinformation from friends or at school or on the internet. So make sure you teach them properly before they learn it the wrong way later from others, right? That's one of our main goals. So let me tell you a little story about answering more than they are asking. And this is what you don't want to do. So one time, it was when our oldest, he's 25 and a half or so now. He was about 4 and a half, and he'd have been 4 and a half because it was an Easter play. He was born in October. So we were at an Easter play at our church, and the way they were doing it is there were these huge sheets put up so that we could just see sort of a silhouette behind the sheets acting out the crucifixion scene. And one of our friends, Mr. Anthony, was playing Jesus in that particular play, and Nathan, our oldest, knew that's who was playing it. And so you could see the cross going up, and they were sort of like silhouetted, miming out the activities of the crucifixion, right? So Nathan, 4.5-year-old, turns to me in a whisper. I believe we were in the balcony that night. He turns to me in a whisper and says, "Mom, why does he have to die?" Oh, and you know, my mama heart just thought, "Oh, sweet boy, this is my chance. I'm going to explain to you how Jesus came to earth to save your soul." And I was just about to launch into the whole, oh my goodness, substitutionary atonement and propitiation and justification, and a blood price has to be paid for our sins, and eternal hope of heaven. And I was forming the words on my tongue when he said, "Mom, I mean, like, why are they going to kill Mr. Anthony?" I said, "Oh, he meant tonight in the church. Why is this guy going to get killed?" He wasn't asking about his eternal salvation that particular night, mind you. So just be careful when children are asking, especially tricky questions like where do babies come from, what exactly are they asking? And so if they are actually asking where the baby came from, then you can explain, well, it takes a mommy and a daddy to make a baby. And the baby grows inside the mommy's tummy. And they'll know that because they'll have seen their mom's belly getting bigger during the pregnancy. And a lot of times the question involves around the exit strategy of the baby. And so you can explain, a sweet way I've heard to explain is, God gives the mommy a tunnel, a special tunnel. And when it's time for the baby to come out of her body, the tunnel gets much bigger just for that special time. And the baby comes out of the tunnel, and then the tunnel shrinks back down to normal size. Now, if your baby was born by C-section, you can show the child gently the incision site and explain, I had to go to the hospital, and the doctors had to make a little cut or incision to get the baby out of my tummy. And then that will heal up, and everybody's okay. So just remember, don't lie answer the questions that were asked, but only the question that was asked, and you don't have to give additional information. So I hope this was helpful, because I do get this question all the time, and as I build up my own bravery, I hope for future videos to give you some tips on sharing the facts of life with older children with gradually increasing more details and accurately so. So I hope this was helpful. Thanks.